Hello everyone, I'm JG and welcome back to Music Forever. Today I'm bringing you guys a brand new track review segment where I get to cover some new recently released songs that I happen to hear and want to share my opinions on. Today I don't have too many tracks I want to talk about, but there's only a couple songs that I've heard in the past week or so that I really felt like sharing my opinions on. So yeah, today's video is going to be a bit shorter than the past few videos in this segment have typically been, but yeah, same format and everything. This is all just my personal opinion. So with all that said, let's get into the first track I want to talk about here today, this new Rex Orange County track, New House. Overall, I would say that this track is a pretty solid Rex Orange County cut. It has a lot of traits and attributes to it that I typically like to see from a Rex Orange County song. It has that kind of upbeat, sunny feel to it, but at the same time it has a bit of a more melancholy feel mixed in there as well, kind of that happy but at the same time kind of sad feel that I get from a lot of Rex Orange County tracks. If you're familiar with his music, you might know what I mean by that. If not, maybe it sounds like I'm just contradicting myself the whole time, but trust me, there's definitely this very interesting dynamic between the different tones that are going on here in this song. I like the delivery here on this track. I think the rapping is pretty solid, and the singing as well is pretty great too, but I especially like how they're just mixed together here on this track. Once again, that's something that is pretty typical for a lot of Rex Orange County songs. However, this track I feel is just another example of it being done rather nicely. I feel like the vocals on this thing are overall just pretty solid through and through. I also quite like the lyrics here on this song as well. They're another aspect of the track that really carries that kind of happy but at the same time sort of sad, melancholy dynamic. Overall, I would say this is just a pretty solid Rex Orange County song. I wouldn't say it's one of the best songs to be released from this music project. However, I will say that it is overall a pretty solid one through and through. If you're a fan of Rex Orange County, you'll like this song to some extent pretty much. So definitely check it out. And if not, if how I described it sounds interesting to you to any extent, definitely give it a shot anyways. Overall, pretty solid track. And moving on, the next track that I'm going to talk about here today is actually a cover song. It's Denzel Curry's cover of Rage Against the Machine's Bulls on Parade. Now, this track was one that I was pretty excited to hear from what was going to be going on here because Bulls on Parade is one of my favorite Rage Against the Machine songs. I quite like Denzel Curry and his music, and I've always felt like he's done really well with a very aggressive sound. And of course, given that this is a Rage Against the Machine song, I felt like the two had potential to be a really great match. And listening to this track, I could happily say that it's definitely what I was hoping it to be and more. Overall, this is a really fantastic cover. Now, with the exception of one aspect of this cover, for the most part, this cover sticks to the original pretty faithfully. However, what really sells this cover as being really standout isn't necessarily the fact that it takes the original song and does a completely different interpretation of it. More so, it managed to be as great as it is just for the energy and the rage that it brings here. This thing has more rage and firepower to it than that entire Prophets of Rage album that several of the Rage Against the Machine members were a part of that came out a couple years ago, and it's definitely leagues and leagues better than that Tom Morello solo album that came out last year. Denzel Curry really brings the rage here on this track. I love his really growly kind of voice here on this thing. It definitely helps set this cover apart from the original, and I think he does a fantastic part here. He just feels really involved with the energy and the passion that's being put into this track. I get the impression that he's having a great time performing this cover. He's just letting out a lot of anger and energy. Overall, it's really infectious how energetic this cover is. The one thing that really sets this cover apart from the original that I kind of alluded to earlier is the fact that during the instrumental bridge of the track, he adds in one of his verses from the track Sirens off of his last album, and it works really nicely overall. I feel like taking a part of a completely different song and adding it into another song always has the potential to not work out very nicely. However, it works rather well here on this track. I think it makes sense given that this cover is meant to showcase Denzel Curry more so than it is the instrumentals here, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to have a lengthy instrumental break in there. So instead, he just gets another verse in there, and the verse from Sirens matches up pretty nicely to a lot of the instrumentation here. It fits with the overall tone of the rest of the track, and it still serves its nice purpose as a bridge, something a little different from what the rest of the track has to offer. Overall, it comes together a lot nicely, a lot nicer than you might expect, given that a song that was just released last year is kind of being melded into a much older song, that's several decades old at this point. It works surprisingly well. The backing band here in this track is doing a pretty good job as well. I love the sound that they bring to this track overall. It's a pretty faithful adaptation of the instrumental to the original Bulls on Parade, and I was pretty happy with it overall. This is just a pretty fantastic cover through and through. I feel like if we wanted to, I feel like Denzel Curry could make like a rap metal album potentially. I mean, like I don't know, like rap metal probably not gonna get another shot in the spotlight after just falling flat on its face the last time. Thanks, Limp Bizkit. But I feel like if there ever was someone who could potentially make another rap metal album that got people excited and interested and may even cause a little revival in the genre, I feel like Denzel Curry maybe has a small chance of doing so. Not saying that he necessarily should do that, or that's what I'm predicting that he's going to do with his next album or anything like that. But I'm just saying, I feel like he could, if he wanted to, potentially do that and do a pretty good job of it. Because this track right here, this cover, pretty great overall. It's not often that I say that to a cover track overall. If you've seen some of my previous track review videos where I've talked about covers, for the most part, I haven't been super crazy about them, but this one here is one that I really love. Overall, a fantastic cover, one that you need to check out if you're a fan of Denzel's or if you're a fan of Rage Against the Machine. You won't be a disappointed person either way. And with all of that said, that concludes today's track review segment video. Like I said, I did not have a lot of tracks to talk about here today, though as it's looking right now, it seems like there's going to be a lot more tracks that I have to talk about next week. So yeah, make sure you tune in next week to see what tracks I'll be talking about then. If you want to do that, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below, and while you're down there, make sure you leave a like on the video and comment down below your thoughts on either of the two tracks I talked about here today. Whether or not you agree or disagree with me, feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching once again, and stay golden.